Okay. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Hebert, Director of Communications here at SAANYS, and welcome to today's edition of SAANYS Connect. This episode will discuss remote learning. Now, before we introduce today's panelists and get going, let's just hear a quick, brief word from our sponsor, Educational Vistas.
Hello, my name is Scott Crowder. I'm the CEO of Educational Vistas here in Schenectady. During this trying time of pandemic, where students are learning remotely from home, we have a couple of free applications that school districts can use that will help them through this process. Number one, our classroom instructional plan links to any student management system and allows the teacher to track the learning process and materials for all students by course, by section, by homeroom, and even the specialist classes. And secondly, our lunch sync application allows schools to quickly find the most efficient way and the least number of vehicles to provide nutritious meals to students at home through the routing that this process does. We hope you give us a call, toll free at 888-999-2554 or info@edvistas.com for more information. Thank you and good luck.
Okay. All right, we want to thank our friends at EdVistas. And before we get going, I also want to remind viewers about an exciting program we have coming up, an online series on improving remote learning with Eric Scheninger, who we're fortunate enough to have on our panel today. So if you don't already know, Eric literally wrote the book on digital leadership. And this is a can't miss event starting in October, so register early and please share the news with your colleagues. We'll send you all a direct link to this flyer and to registration following this program. Okay, and then just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. First, I would suggest you place your screen view in speaker view mode rather than gallery view mode, because we are in Zoom meetings rather than webinar. And that will help the speaker appear on the large screen. Secondly, everyone has been placed in mute mode, so please use the chat room throughout the entire presentations for questions and comments. And then if time permits, we'll unmute at the end of the program for some live Q&A. And lastly, this presentation is being recorded and will be placed on the SAANYS website along with any additional resources mentioned today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Karen Bronson, our Director of Professional Learning.
And thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for joining us for SAANYS Connect today. As always, we try to bring topics that we think school leaders like you across New York State will find timely and helpful. And regardless of our topic, we try to put that topic through the lens of what school leaders are thinking and wondering and needing now. So we hope that this episode on improving remote learning for school leaders, part 1, is helpful to you. So we think it's fair to say that getting better at remote learning and hybrid models and all of the forms of remote learning is really something that all of you are striving to do regardless of where you are right now, so that you can best support your teachers and the other members of your school communities. So in this 2-part series, which begins today and continues with part 2 in 2 weeks, on Thursday, October 15th, we will focus on what you can do as a school leader to better support remote learning in your school and at home, regardless of your own existing expertise with technology or where your own school is on the reopening continuum. And, you know, I have to say, and I think that's true for all of our panelists and all of you who are listening today, we in our schools and schools across our state are all over the map from A to Z on this continuum with regard to their reopening models and what they are providing now for remote learning and how well that is going now. You know, we're hearing everything from, wow, things are going remarkably well. We're hearing very much, isn't it amazing what educators, what teachers and leaders and everyone has done since last March, when it was really just kind of a panicked emergency fix. We're at a very, very different place now, but we're also very much hearing about the struggles, the challenges, the anxiety, and all the rest that come with such a steep learning curve for all of us. So certainly there's a big continuum, but we are all striving to kind of move forward together. So as always, I want to thank our panelists for joining us at such a busy time, which always feels like such an understatement on these panels. So please let's welcome, first of all, Eric Sheninger, educator and author of Digital Leadership, Learning Transform, and Uncommon Leadership, and other books as well. Eric is an associate partner with the International Center for Leadership in Education, also a former principal, secondary principal in New Jersey, which really connects him to all of us, and a national thought leader and presenter on all things remote and digital. Thanks so much, Eric, for being here today.
My pleasure.
Can't wait for your series. Also, I want to welcome our good friend, Dr. Amy Del Corvo, CEO and Executive Director of NYSCATE. As you know, NYSCATE has been leading the way in integration of technology in New York State schools for years. And in fact, Amy has connected us so nicely with technology leaders. Amy introduced me and us at SAANYS to Eric a number of years ago when his book Digital Leadership first came out. It was a very new topic, a very new phrase. We put on a great day in Syracuse that featured Eric and the topic of digital leadership. And many of us came with the question, what is that? And we left having a powerful, powerful day of learning, not only around technology, but also around pedagogy and instruction and the change that has to come with the technology itself. So that was a memorable day. And Amy, you made that happen way back when, and we've been doing great things ever since. So I also want to welcome Dr. Richard Delisle, AKA RJ, Director of Technology, Baldwinsville Central School District, and SAANYS 2020 Leader in Digital Education Award. Welcome, RJ. And Lori Guillaume, Coordinator for Model Schools at Wish We BOCES, and also a trainer for NYSCATE. Thank you once again, Amy, for introducing us to Lori. And we also have to congratulate Lori. These kudos are kind of rolling in. Lori was recently selected for the 2020 Next Gen Emerging Tech Leaders Program, which recognizes rising technology leaders in K-12 school districts across the United States. So Lori, we are honored to have you and the rest of our panels here today. So I just want to remind you too that the series that we're going to be doing with Eric very shortly, it starts at the end of October. That's another thing that we're doing in conjunction with our partners at NYSCATE. It starts October 27th, so start thinking about registering for that. I think it's the most important PD that you're going to see this year. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of our program, but we want to thank NYSCATE again for partnering with us on that. All righty, so let's get started. So I'll remind you that we'll be taking questions or comments from you through the chat bar during our discussion. We have some initial questions for our panelists, and then at the end, we'll open it up purely for some of your questions. So we hope we can get to lots of them. And please don't hesitate to use the chat bar for not only questions, but your own thoughts, perspectives, comments, anything that you would like to share with the group and with one another. Please post it, and hopefully we'll have as much dialogue throughout this hour as we can. I want to remind you, we always post the resources that our panelists share with us, and they are very rich resources that we have this time, as always, and they will be linked to the recorded version of this panel afterward. They will be up on our SAANYS website, and any resources that our panelists refer to or recommend or even perhaps show you some of during the course of our discussion will be available to you on the website afterward. All righty, so we have lots to talk about. So we're going to start with Eric. Eric's work connects him with schools and leaders all over the country. So he has a prime perch to look at challenges that need to be overcome and changes that have to be made to successfully implement remote learning models. So Eric, what are you seeing now in terms of the primary challenges that have to be overcome, and how in all of this is it ultimately going to depend upon pedagogy changing as well? Just kind of share with us what
Yeah,
you
you
across
know,
big land of ours.
one of the primary challenges that I see is trying to use traditional methodologies in a remote environment. And it just does not work. Now, I'm not saying they don't work from a traditional sense, but what I'm seeing is teachers doing double or triple the work. As I go into schools across the country and coach both teachers and administrators, the number one challenge or obstacle that they are literally crying to me about is time. Now, what's going to happen for all of you is remote's not going away. At some point, you are going to go to some sort of hybrid model where you will have face-to-face kids and remote learners at the same time. That's the reality of my son right now here in Texas, who's upstairs doing his remote studies because he wasn't getting any different when he was at face-to-face. Time is one of the biggest challenges. Another is equity. You know, how do we ensure that all kids get what they need, when they need it, where they need it? And there's so much emphasis on the digital divide, which is a challenge. It is. It's not impossible, but it is more difficult to effectively implement remote pedagogies without technology. But when we think about the equity piece, that really comes down to personalization. And I'm not talking about all kids on a device using an adaptive learning tool at the same time, and we call that personalized. When I'm talking about personalization, it's that root word personal. Because another challenge that we had that was all over the news, and this I thought was such a discredit to teachers and administrators who have been working tirelessly to get this to be successful. There was an article by the Wall Street Journal in the spring that said remote learning was a monumental failure. Well, it wasn't a failure. No one was prepared for this. There was no training. We had to get things together in an emergency situation to get through the year. But as we think about the challenges, what that article really was alluding to was that the majority of kids, 60% or so, were not actually logging on. They were home, but they weren't logging on. So the question is why? Why were kids not logging on? We could look at the challenge dealing with digital and not having equitable access, but we saw story after story of districts giving out mobile hotspots, Wi-Fi enabled devices, purchasing devices for at-risk kids, polling parents to see what resources they had. But what it really comes down to when we think of the big challenges, how do we make learning engaging for our kids? And in order for kids to really log into remote, they have to be engaged. And if we want to empower them to learn, you can't do that without engagement. So I'm just going to focus really quick on these 6 things and then turn it over to the other questions for my colleagues. 6 things to think about from a pedagogical standpoint, lessons that we've learned, things that I now work with teachers and administrators on is there has to be relevance in a remote environment. You know, do kids know why they're learning this and how they're going to use it? We have to involve them in discourse, you know, getting kids to actively talk with one another. That's why I love Zoom breakout rooms and Google Meet breakouts. And don't tell me that young kids can't do it because I've seen pre-K teachers do it effectively. We have to move from discourse to collaboration where kids are involved in cooperative learning. We have to understand that remote is all about flexibility. This is a time that you have a clean slate, everybody, where we can get rid of the rigid nature of school. We then have to focus on personalization through high agency strategies, voice, choice, path, pace, place. And traditional grading, again, in my opinion, not gonna work. This is the time where we focus on feedback for our learners. And if you're an administrator, same thing, how we give feedback to our teachers.
Thank you. And you know, you mentioned that maybe one of the primary stressors on teachers is that they're feeling that they're doing twice the work. And perhaps maybe you can shed some light. Do some of our teachers, maybe more so content area teachers than secondary levels, do they still feel that they are in that I have to cover this same content and curriculum kind of mode? And how am I going to do that and everything else that remote requires? So maybe just, this is such an important point that you're making. Give us one more example of how we can, as school leaders, communicate with teachers in terms of perhaps not doing twice the work, but working differently at this point.
Yes. And please know, everyone, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm trying to get you to think about what you do. No kid comes home and goes, Mom, Dad, I just had an amazing experience exploring the curriculum and standard blah, blah, blah. This is not, and let's be honest, how much stuff in the curriculum that we have to cover really has meaning and value in the real world? I can tell you, as someone that's gone from the public sector to the private sector, a lot of what I learned has no bearance on what I do now. Now, I'm not saying it's not important. The key is to focus on priority standards, to figure out what has the most value to enable your learners, whether the remote, hybrid, or face-to-face, to be successful. How do we get kids to think and apply their thinking in relevant and meaningful ways? So now is the time to condense the curriculum. Unbeknownst to me, I don't think there's curriculum police that are come and say, you must cover this. If so, I mean, that is another pitfall, Karen, that you alluded to. Trying to think that you have to cover the entire curriculum, because you will not be able to. One of the greatest gifts that leaders can give teachers is time, and how you work that out. I got a blog post coming out on Sunday with specifics on that. Time, and be empathetic. Showing grace, providing support, telling them that it's okay. Now, I'm not saying don't give them feedback on how to grow, but this is the time we got to focus on what standards are the most important. And I get it. And I don't know if the plan is for your students to still take the Regents. And that's what I get a lot from teachers and leaders in New York. Well, we got to get to the Regents. Hopefully there will be grace shown by you at the state level as well.
Thank you. And, we miss Dr. Cindy Gallagher being here with us today. She's usually with us on all of our SAANYS Connect panels. She's great at giving kind of that state and governmental perspective. And I know that even before the pandemic hit, there was a lot of focus on the future of the Regents and how those testing models were really ready to get close scrutiny and hopefully change. And here in New York State, I think many of us are kind of waiting to hear, okay, so we're listening to change and condensing content and doing things differently. We really want things to change at the state level as well to support that. So there's so much to think about, so many layers. So, thank you for kind of getting us thinking along those lines. So let's kind of move to Amy. Amy, in addition to your work in New York State for NYSCATE, you've also been working not only in New York State, but on some national initiatives as well that we'd really like to hear about. And also, we know that you're transitioning NYSCATE's professional learning models, which is very timely as well, so that we as educators can learn as much as we can. So, Amy, just kind of share with us some of the exciting things that you're doing in New York State and beyond right now.
Sure. With NYSCATE, our mission is to, how do we enhance education with the most appropriate technology, which is not a one size fits all, not a laptop per child. It's what is best for that personal part that Eric referred to for every child. And what we found when COVID hit is it put a thrust on our organization like nobody ever imagined. And we worked with many of our master teachers from around the state. Lori, who you'll hear from in a moment, is a great example. And Lori shared real-time expertise with folks from all around the state, regardless of where they were. And what I'm really proud about NYSCATE, we'd not charge a penny for anything. This was not about making money or pushing our nonprofit along. This was really about educators sharing best practices with educators and folks that were very used to utilizing technology to enhance instruction, now to some incredible teachers that really did not embrace technology. So it was leveling that playing field regardless of where you were. And I think one of the things that we learned is that it was a big hurry up and wait point, because all of a sudden people were in shock what to do. But then there was such a plethora of resources that were thrown at everyone from every company, well-meaning companies, associations, groups, And I'm really proud of the work that ISTE, ISTE being the International Society of Technology and Education, but ISTE put together a group and a website where they started to filter and mine many of these, and I'm going to say many thousands of these resources that were coming through. And the website is called learningkeepsgoing.org. And it is up and it's available. And it filters lesson plans, ideas, content, and all of this is for teachers that are new to utilizing technology. It's for teachers that have been utilizing technology, how to teach science labs at home with materials you have at home, how to incorporate technology with math equations, everything across the board from phys ed to physics, chemistry, mathematics. And these resources have all been categorized by state standards, by grade level, again, at no cost to anybody, any educator, which was great. In addition to that, so once we started pulling together this warehouse of materials, there's a group, there are over 35 educational institutions on a national level that pulled together and pulled their top resources. And our work fell into one of 6 different categories. And Eric, I love your passion, which is in our warm-up call, I was asking Eric if he missed being in the classroom because he has such passion about what he does. And more than anything, I think that's our number one resource. These incredible teachers and administrators that are working with our kids every day. But you'll see when I share the 6 different areas, it really equated, Erica, you said something about every single one of these areas, which I found that very ironic. So our work really boiled down into the following. Policy and advocacy, because we knew we needed money, we needed budgets, we needed policy and procedure. Personalized learning for all students. Security, privacy, and digital citizenship standards. Connectivity, which is not the same as equity. As we started the discussion, it was connectivity and equity. Very shortly after that, it switched. That is not the same discussion at all. And obviously, social emotional learning had a very, very large percentage. And one of the things that we're really working on right now is educating every child, because what we're finding in the large cities, you still have a very large percentage of students that are not logging on, that are not having that one-to-one experience that they need to have. So I did put that information, and I see that Michelle put it in the chat, which I'm very appreciative of. And Karen, do you want me to talk a moment about what we're doing at the NYSCATE level for New York State?
Definitely, please do.
So NYSCATE had put together, I believe at this point it's over 100 different 1-hour webinar sessions on everything from, well, the first week it was, you're a teacher teaching at home, how do I set up a dual monitor? So something that basic how to, into setting up a classroom in Google and Microsoft, Seesaw, Bunsy, Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Classroom, you name it, Google Forms, all the way down for anyone. And all of these webinars are archived for free at www.nysgate.org. There are no advertisements attached to them whatsoever. I will say they are not fully edited, as in if people would ask any question, you'll see that the question is there. And again, folks like Lori, who you'll hear from in a moment, spent hours of just providing this free professional development. And we've archived them. We are in the process of sharing them with the state. So anyone throughout New York State and beyond would have access to them at no charge.
That's awesome. And, you know, I really have to say, take a minute and look at our chat bar already if you're listening, because there's a gold mine there. Okay. We've already hit the jackpot in this conversation. We have what Amy mentioned, www.learningkeepsgoing.org. We have resources from Eric. Eric has just posted examples of educators doing amazing work in the remote and hybrid learning space, and a link to that. I need to stop for a minute and tell you that just as someone who was in a classroom as a teacher of English for many years and then a school leader for a second many years, what people benefit from most is examples. Show me what it's supposed to look like. I'm getting the sense in a lot of remote learning now that I always did as a teacher and leader, there is more telling and perhaps not enough showing. So if we can tap into these examples and share them with our teachers of what high quality remote and hybrid lessons look like, that can be worth its weight in gold. So we already have Learning Keeps Going, examples from Eric's Blogspot with good examples to share with your teachers, and the NiceGate website itself with the kinds of things that Amy mentioned are archived there that really get down to the nitty-gritty skills that people need. This is not, 30,000 foot philosophical stuff. This is, you got to know how to do this in order to move forward in what we're trying to do. So just directing your folks to resources like that is so tremendously helpful. So thank you so much already. So right now, this is a great time to move to Lori, because Lori is very much on the ground in terms of professional learning now here in New York State, both for Wish We BOCES and for NiceGate. And I'm going to ask Lori to kind of share with us some common trends around predominant skills that teachers are trying to build now, and how we as school leaders can be a positive force in that process. And I have to ask Lori, when we spoke initially about this panel, she just ran some few little statistics past me about, how a year or so ago, she ran 3 workshops on X, Y, and Z, and it was hard to get anybody to come. And now when something opens up, it's just a flood. So people are really looking for this. And Lori, we're so glad you're here with us today. Tell us what you're doing, what you're seeing, and what you're thinking.
Yeah. Last summer, I ran 3 workshops. I had 6 participants.
Yeah.
This summer, I ran 30 workshops and I had over 500 participants. Teachers are hungry to learn and gather as much information as they possibly can. Just to give you a little background, like Amy was saying, I ran a lot of professional development March 16th was like when everything hit, right? And I started with just one-on-ones. I set out like 3 hours a day where I'm like, just come in and ask questions. And I was getting 60, 70 people coming in and just asking, how do I do this? And and it was simple things at the beginning, like, I don't know how to use Google Meet. I've never done this kind of thing. Where do I find the add button? Those simple things. Splitting a screen, that blows people's minds that they can actually have 2 screens up at the same time. And that's where it kind of started. And I did almost between March and June, I probably ran, I think about 120 webinars between NiceGate and BOCES on anything, like you're saying, those real basic skills to really the big picture. And the most, they were all well attended, but some of the most attended ones were how to bring the fun back, because they were feeling like they were just trying to get through their curriculum, trying to stay on their pacing guides, and really just try to figure out, how to make sure they get this worksheet into this virtual hand, right? And that was a lot of the beginning stuff, but now we're starting to see the shift. And that kind of happened this summer, where you started to see all these teachers coming in saying, all right, now I know I have this curriculum. I know how to use Google Meet. Now how do I make it all kind of come together? How do I make it work in a hybrid model? And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to get into classrooms in some of the school districts I work with. For those of you who don't know my BOCES, we service 5 counties. We have 31 school districts, about 42,000 students. So now the focus has been, how do I make this hybrid model work? And every district really has been running this type of model very differently. Some districts have, all the virtual ones have virtual teachers. I have other ones that have some students that are live in the classroom through a Google Meet, and others are in the classroom, or they're using Zoom, or they're using Canvas, or they're using Google Classroom. So you really see the whole gamut. But the trends are the same as far as what teachers are looking for, what they need. Number one, Eric hit it right off the bat. It's time. They need time to organize, to figure out how to make things work. They know they can't do that traditional model of teaching anymore. That has become very clear to them. But they need the time to understand how to make that shift. And they need that grace from all of you to kind of say, you know what, don't worry about your pacing guide so much. It may be okay that you don't get to X, Y, and Z. Eric said it again, right? You want to make sure you're hitting those big key points that you need to make sure that students know, these, X, Y, and Z skills, because that's what's going to help them be successful on a Regents or a state exam or get them ready for next year. But it's also bringing back some of the fun. That's where I'm starting to see teachers going, okay, now that we've had a week or 2 or 3 weeks of school, and now we want to start to figure out different ways. So I've been in classes that are starting to use those breakouts and having some really great success with kids working and collaborating, whether they're in the classroom or they're not. And they're doing some, digital activities where they're collaborating on, whether it's a Jamboard or a Google Doc or, whatever it happens to be. They're able to do these kind of things because they're starting to get the time to do it. It's starting to come together. But having the time to actually, common plan with teachers and, with other teachers that are doing that sort of thing, being able to still come to webinars, whether they're after school or during lunch or however they work out, to have that opportunity to ask those questions has been very helpful. One of the districts I work with, what one principal did is set up 15-minute to half-hour sessions with me to just have them ask questions. It's not a scripted half hour that we spend together. It's, you share best practices that you've seen with like Google Classroom or whatever, but also just give them time to ask. And one question I thought was really funny that came out of it was, the teachers now in some of the districts are shifting from room to room instead of the students. And the teacher goes, I don't know where to put my coat.
Yeah.
So we had to problem solve something like that, right? They don't know where to store their things. So those kind of things, giving them the protocols of where you do different things and how you do different things, they need that. They need that support. One of the things that our BOCES put together recently that came from the parent interruption part, right? That's a big part of it, is how to deal with parents that are now really in your classrooms because they're there, right? They're right next to their student in this virtual hybrid model. And so we created a poster, and I think I shared it. If not, I can put it in the chat after. But it's a poster on just the how to help your student as the grown-up, in the situation, on letting your students try to troubleshoot and letting them ask the questions of the teachers. And the teachers need that support to know that we've set these protocols for them and for their and for the parents as they're going through. So those are the big ones I'm seeing, is teachers just need the time. They need protocols set in place that are pretty, standard, no different than, first month of school, you tend to set up those protocols with your students. You need to set up those protocols with everybody that's involved, all, stakeholders in this learning experience. And they really need you to continue to encourage them that, you're doing a good job. It's okay if you're behind on your pacing guide or you don't get to this activity. And it's okay maybe on a Friday to take them outside to do an experiment, or something along those lines. I saw one 5th grade recently took the kids outside to explore gravity, so you put them out on a big field and you did something fun, those kids are going to remember those experiences way more than they're going to remember that traditional model of teaching in their classroom. So giving that, encouraging those fun activities and getting them to do some of those engaging activities that can happen no matter where they are is really going to make a big impact.
Thank you, Lori. And, you're working with so many teachers in so many districts. It has to be gratifying. There are silver linings in this whole thing, as we well know, okay, where people have come regardless of where they were and regardless of their previous openness, willingness, fear, you name it, in terms of really moving forward with technology in classrooms, is amazing. It's amazing what people have done, regardless of where they began, in their own continuum. And it deserves all of the respect and honor in the world in terms of what people are doing now and really what great support they are having to do it. And kind of the more personal, the better. I think a lot of us who have been educators for a very long time, we remember when the first computers came in our offices and classrooms, and we depended on somebody at the time to come and show us and to be patient with us and to not just talk fast and assume we knew what they were talking about, and those are the things that helped us learn from day one. And people are very fortunate, to have that right now, because what a learning curve, what an understatement to say what a learning curve, right? Amy.
We actually had, and Laura, I'm sure you know who I'm referring to, the most important part of everything is taking teachers where they're at.
Absolutely.
Not and it doesn't matter where you're at. Just recognize it and move forward on the continuum. We had a woman that I don't believe ever touched any technology at all in teaching. And let me tell you what, when we started offering all these courses, this woman signed up for everything.
Amazing.
She was very quiet, and then she started asking questions and asking questions and asking questions. I believe we're actually going to have her at our conference this year, just to get up there and say, what is she doing now? How her learning curve has been affected by all of this, and how this changed her entire approach to teaching, because she just put down any filter she had and just said, just help me. This
Yeah.
is where I'm at. That's where I need to be. I'm going to take
Exactly.
it slow, and it's okay.
Yep.
And I think that's the most important message to everybody. It is okay. Whether you're a teacher or administrator, take it a step at a time. And you know what? There is not a single person, and Lori is an absolute rock star. She knows I'm her biggest fan. And Eric, same way. But there is not a single one of us that knows everything. And when we all work together and help each other, that's the magic right there.
Time demands it, that's for sure. And that's a good thing.
It was incredible how many teachers told me it was their last year of teaching, but they wanted to make sure they could be there for their students. It was an incredible amount of teachers that came in and said, I've never done this. I only have 6 months left, or I only have a year left, but yeah, I got to figure this out for my kids.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I want to go to RJ right now, because RJ, this is all well and good as long as the stuff works. So if the stuff doesn't work, we kind of have a problem in Houston, right? So you have described your role in the district as being responsible for anything with a plug. And that's a tall order in a district like Baldwinsville, right? So RJ, just tell us how logistics have shifted since the initial emergency response last March, and what you're seeing now as the primary needs and challenges with regards to logistics and equipment in your district right now.
Okay, will do. And first of all, let me thank you for the honorary doctorate degree that you.
I know, I bestowed one on you.
Thank you
And
so much.
I just think you deserve one, so now you have one.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
And bear with me, folks. I do want to share my
Doctorate one.
screen
Yes.
with you, just because I'm old, and if I don't have something to look at, I forget what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So real quickly, I just want to paint the picture of what the Baldwinsville district looks like and kind of the challenges that we've had to shift into this remote gear. That's me. If you ever want to get a hold of me, I'll post this up and we can have a chat.
Don't forget to put your new doctorate up there.
My new title. Okay. So that little red spot is kind of where we're located in upstate New York, near Syracuse. We're a district of about 5,400 students, 475 teachers, and 8 school buildings. We have a K-5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 12 model here, which is a little different than some other places. So our opening plan, we had some different models, and we've got a full remote model where if you're in K2, you can either be full remote or full in person. There's no hybrid for K2. 3-5, full remote or full in person or a hybrid, and same with 6-12. So we probably have about 20% of the kids out on full remote instruction, and the rest of the kids are in some kind of a combination of 3 days on, 3 days off, where they're in person for 3 days and then they go home for 3 days. So that in itself has created a huge challenge for, logistically for the teachers to be able to get to all their students either when they're home and on remote instruction while they're still teaching the other half of the kids that are here in person. So we're fortunate and blessed here that we have a ton of technology. We've built it up over the years, thousands of Chromebooks and thousands of PCs and thousands of iPads. And so there's a lot of equipment, and we've developed a system here for when kids come to school, the equipment is there and ready for them. Our challenges kind of look like this. The initial challenge, the base of the pyramid, was we had to convert from a one-to-one program in school. We did not send technology home with kids. The district demographically did not require that. If a kid needed a piece of equipment, we would send it home with them, but it was very few and far between. In March, we had to loan out quickly 1,800 Chromebooks in a hurry with no real good system in place to do that. We did the best we could. People got what they needed. And our challenge was to get that stuff back before September and convert it from a cart-based program where kids came in, and if they needed a Chromebook or whatever, they wouldn't got one on the cart for the class, and then they put it back. We had to convert that to where we got all that equipment out to the kids, out to the masses. And I'll tell you, there is a 15-cent item that almost stopped the whole thing from happening. Can you see this? It's a tie wrap. So every one of those 6,000 Chromebooks was in a cart, and the charging cord was tie wrapped twice, double tie wraps. And we had to get in there and remove essentially 12,000 tie wraps. And really, there was no one to do it but me and one other person. And so my weekends were spent in the latter part of August on my hands and knees, crawling and snipping these tie wraps. But it's just a little thing like that can hold up a whole operation. So once we got that logistics of that, of getting the Chromebooks out to the kids that need them because they can't share. So even the kids that come to school for the 3 days in person have to make sure they use the same Chromebook all the time. Got through that challenge, and our second layer of challenges was our SIS system is not built for cohorts. You know, we have a B and a Buzz cohort, so the B kids are here for 3 days, and then they go home, and the Buzz kids come in for 3 days, and then they keep swapping. Well, in order to put them in homerooms and all that, they had to be in a cohort, and our SIS system just wasn't up to that. On top of that, they didn't put the kids in homeroom because they didn't have a homeroom. And our whole account management system is based on picking up that homeroom to synchronize every night. So there was a huge challenge to get all these kids put back into a homeroom so their accounts would work. We got through that challenge. Now we're in the phase of supersize help desk. The technology's out there. We've added so many new platforms for teachers to use with kids: Seesaw, Pear Deck, Edpuzzle, Screencast, you name it, we've added it. And now we're in this mode of trying to help everybody with everything. Kids, parents, teachers, administrators. My help desk is on overtime right now. And I actually even make home visits just so I can go and see what challenges are people at home that are struggling with, so we can help them. So that's kind of where we are. The things that have worked well is I knew early on I was going to have to hire some help for the summer to get this to happen, and we did. We had to delegate a lot to people that normally we weren't delegating to in the technology department, and we really had to prioritize what got done before the kids started showing up for school. I had to rely a lot on the relationships I developed with my RIC and my BOCES. They helped me a ton. People like Lori and helped us out to get teachers transitioned over some of these new platforms. You just had to over communicate to teachers all the time and get my hands dirty, go into places that I usually don't have to go to as a 56-year-old, 25-year veteran, but I did it. Finding pockets of expertise. I can't tell you how much I appreciate my librarians. They were my whole nother fleet of tech support for students, parents, and teachers. And without them, this wouldn't have been successful. And like Eric said, you really have to listen and empathize and over-explain, because people are going in to do things they've never done before. And my advice to them was to start with what you know and then grow. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of where we've been with this and what we've seen happen. And we're still trying to offer that support. It's starting to kind of get into a rhythm now. We're in our third week and the help desk calls are calming down. Parents are feeling more comfortable at home with the technology and helping the kids. And now we're shifting to, let's get using that technology for really good pedagogy.
That's great. RJ, what advice would you have for a school leader in terms of the best way to work with his or her director of technology in terms of communication, you name it? Yeah,
I mean, I'm an open door. Like I said, everybody has my cell phone. Everybody knows how to get hold of me. I tell them, please tell me if you're seeing challenges. Don't try to solve it yourself if you don't have the tools to do it. You just really have to make yourself available and over communicate.
Over communicate. Thank you. We've gotten some great comments in the chat bar. I want to stop for a minute. Joe Dragone, can you just kind of share with us the gist of your comment in the chat? I think it's one we all will benefit from hearing. You can unmute.
Folks should be able to unmute themselves.
There it is.
There you go.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I've been in the business for a very long time, and I'm listening to the speakers talk about the necessity of leading for change and using teachers as the agents of change. And I just reflect on the fact that for 53 years that I've been in this business, I still consider myself a teacher, even though I'm now an assistant superintendent. I just have a different audience. It's parents and taxpayers instead of kids in the classroom. It's finance and law instead of algebra and geometry. It's the boardroom instead of the classroom. But as long as I continue to consider myself a teacher, because I do, then I think that my role as a leader in the school system is that much easier to accomplish.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that with us. The important role of the librarian has surfaced here in our conversation, and I'm sure we've all seen that. If there are any librarians who are listening right now, just kind of let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear from you too. Right now, I want to kind of circle back and let's start with Eric. What I'd like to do, because we'd like to have a little bit of time for more questions, but I'd like each member of our panel to just kind of focus on a recommendation. Just talk to us as school leaders who are trying to improve remote learning options in our schools. What's something we can do that's realistic to bring people forward, but hitting kind of that good spot of being able to do that without creating even additional, tension and anxiety and stress, which is the last thing we need right now. So let's go back to Eric for a minute for any thoughts.
Yeah, I think I'm going to focus again from a teaching and learning standpoint, because I think that's where the most support is needed. And I think the key focus area is balance. I don't know about you, but I have Zoom fatigue right now.
Oh yeah.
I am fatigued because I've been on Zoom calls all day. And there is a lot of literature out there about the impact that has on our learners. So when I talk about balance, when I'm giving feedback to principals, when they're asking me, hey, Eric, what do you think about this remote lesson? If there is continuous talking through a screen for more than 10 minutes, I have to say, hey, we got to think about how we are structuring our lessons. And actually, what they say is that the average attention span of an adult online is 7 minutes. So balance. So I'm not saying don't do synchronous learning. We want really powerful direct instruction. We want it targeted, but that could be a video that kids can go back. We're talking about personalization where they can watch at their own pace. But then we want to pair that with powerful asynchronous learning tasks. And when we think about blended pedagogies, this is a natural fit for a remote environment, whether you're using station rotation, choice boards, playlists, or the flipped classroom. I'm going to tell you, forget all you heard about some of the terminology out there. It's just too much. Keep it simple, stupid. Those are the 4 ways that are the most practical. So balance is the biggest piece of feedback that I can give you as leaders, whether you're a district leader, classroom, school leader, or classroom leader.
Thank you. And we already got an acknowledgement from Amy and now you about so much stuff, us feeling bombarded by so many resources, probably each one of them really good, but just that tendency to step back, take a breath, and try to keep it simple and focused. That's a really good reminder. I just want to mention a book that I think is really, really an excellent one right now that you all might want to share with your teachers. And I think Amy, you connected us here too. And just correct me if I misstate, but Emma Pass, P-A-S-S, The Hybrid Teacher's Survival Guide.
Yes.
Michelle can put the title up on the chat. Emma Pass, The Hybrid Teacher's Survival Guide. excellent resource. Emma's doing an article for Vanguard for us. I am determined to get her for a future panel. She is a teacher talking to teachers, and what's more valuable than that? And once again, like the examples that Eric shared earlier, oh boy, is it good to look at examples. Oh boy, is it good to have a book like Emma's too, in terms of that simple how-to, down to the nitty-gritty that really makes the difference. So keeping it simple and looking for some of the best resources, which are some of whom are sitting here today, and some others at a time when we're feeling so bombarded. So let's just continue around our panel. One piece of advice, recommendation for our school leaders right now. How about Lori?
Sure. I would say, and I didn't coin the phrase, I saw it on Twitter, and I thought it made a lot of sense, but go slow to go fast. Really take the time and allow your teachers to take the time to build those relationships with the students. You know, it kind of goes what I was saying with the protocols, right? The more you build those relationships with your students, the more accepting they're going to be with communicating with you in a digital world. I did have one teacher who said they were having trouble getting their students to unmute. So we talked about strategies to do that, and it's talking about building those relationships. So it could be something as simple as, you know, asking a question every day. I saw one teacher said they ask a simple question at the beginning of every day to just get the kids to unmute and answer the question. But he's also building the relationships, getting to know the kids, the things that they like and the things they, you know, they think about. So going slow is going to allow you to catch up on that curriculum you're so worried about, right? And get you back on that pacing. But taking the time to go slow and building those relationships is going to make an incredible difference in, you know, just allowing that classroom to flow.
Thank you. Kevin Barrett has a great question. Kevin, if you are there, would you like to ask your question? You can unmute yourself and ask.
Yes.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, how are you? Our teachers, they just did a phenomenal job of rolling out, you know, digital instruction. They really had very limited time. You know, over the summer, we were really in the process of creating a good reentry, you know, a reentry, you know, reentry plan. So really what I've noticed around the building is that you have teachers that, you know, they were highly effective, they still are highly effective, but they really are struggling with the use of technology and navigating multiple things at once. And so, you know, it's new to me, so I really don't know how to encourage him or to give him a strategy for that. And I'm just wondering if there's anything out there for that, particularly dealing with, you know, digital leadership and, you know, digital delivery.
Be Eric or Amy or Lori?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would say that if your teachers are feeling that technology fatigue, you know, and overwhelming feeling, so are the students and the parents. So I say stick to the base of what they have to use, you know, with technology, build the comfort zone and the workflows with those before you start adding layers. You know, a teacher that is comfortable with technology can sometimes use up to like 10, 15 different tools throughout the day, but just because they're comfortable with it doesn't mean that every student in that class is, or you may be comfortable with something, but not every teacher is comfortable with it. So it kind of goes back to that go slow to go fast. Build and learn one first and then build to do the next one. I know when I first started using technology in the classroom back in, I was a 6th grade English teacher. I think it was 2013, we got iPads the week before school started and said, try them out, see how it goes. And it went really well. And just trying one app with students made such a difference to be able to build our comfort zone and help them to understand it. And they're going to be more engaged if they have time to explore. I was with 1st graders yesterday using Seesaw, and the teacher's like, I don't know how to teach them how to use the tools. And I said, well, just open it up and let them play. And sometimes that makes all the difference. And doing the same for your teachers. Open it up and let them play, right? Let them click the buttons and say nothing bad's going to happen. It's not like you wrote a 30-page paper on Microsoft Word and forgot to hit save, right? That's not going to happen anymore. So give them the time to just play. I think that's going to make such a difference in their comfort zone, and they'll feel less overwhelmed.
Thank
I
you,
agree.
Lori.
Lori,
Amy.
what I would add to that is
Yeah.
I would have the teachers share with each other very small elements along the way. As in, and this will go back to the prior question as well. One key thing with all lessons is you want them to be interactive, and you certainly want with saying that though, you want the instruction to drive the technology. You do not want the technology to drive the instruction. And that phrase is more important now than ever before. So if just something is very simple as polling, Q&A, those are just a small skill that then a teacher can incorporate throughout all of their lessons and at different times. But for that question right there, I would suggest having a plan. What is the worst thing we could do is throw Chromebooks or devices in teachers' hands throughout a district without any plan for PD. And unfortunately, we were faced with doing that. Then we were fighting with getting the acquisition and getting the actual devices, getting them deployed, getting them in inventory, where PD didn't become the number one piece. So just even if you do it in really small steps, have a weekly newsletter, have your teacher share a tip, share a trick. Again, I don't want to tout NiceGate too much, but there's a plethora of free resources available online. For those that are ready to go faster, let them do it self-paced courses. For those that are ready to get fully engaged, attend the conference to get a year's worth of PD. If not, small tips and tricks along the way. It's okay to try it, it's okay to fail, but you have to keep it interactive for the students, and you have to keep them engaged, and it has to be fun. So just keep pushing themselves.
And
Amy,
Kevin,
thank
to echo what they both said real quick, I agree. They said many of the things that's in a link that I put in the chat box for you to refer to. So it's up there, but it really echoes a lot of what Amy and Lori just said.
Thank you. Just a thought, and Amy, you've been saying that instruction has to be the driver, not the technology, for as long as I've known you. And
Yep.
now it's just especially important to remember that. Just kind of talk to our school leaders for a minute. Let's draw a parallel here. So teachers are trying to make lessons that are interactive and engaging for students, using some of those features that you mentioned and strategies. A lot of our school leaders are now holding faculty meetings virtually, right? And we can hold a faculty meeting virtually and have it be as deadly as the worst faculty meeting we ever held in the school cafeteria, right? I mean, that would be easy to do. We just get on there and we talk for 40 minutes. And there you go. Okay. So that wasn't so hot in the school cafeteria before March, and it's not so hot now. So think about something like a faculty meeting. How could a school leader maybe build in one strategy kind of in line with everything that you're saying that would resonate with teachers at a faculty meeting? One thing a school leader could do.
So I'm going to go really quick. I think you got to model what you expect. I just worked with 300 principals in Kentucky yesterday. And what I do in my presentations remotely is I model. So I did some targeted instruction. Then I had a guiding question or activity. Then I put them in Zoom breakout rooms. But then when they came out of the breakout rooms, I had accountability and student voice where everyone used a digital tool to respond. Do that in your faculty meeting is the most powerful way to move people to where you want them to be.
Thank you. And model what you want. Another great idea for us to take away in how we deal with our faculties. At the same time, we're asking them to provide learning that's engaging to our students. Let's go back to you, RJ. A tip for school leaders.
Well, since this is SAANYS, I would have to say to those leaders out there, don't forget to get out there and look at what your teachers are going through. We ask teachers to do some impossible things. For my end of it, giving a teacher a Chromebook and putting them in a room in a wireless connection, say, go have a Google Meet with 30 kids, does not work. So, the principals need to advocate with the district office for making sure that there's quality equipment budgeted so that these teachers can have a quality experience with the children. We can't really help what's on the other end at the house, but we can make sure that Principals understand what teachers are logistically going through, getting them the right equipment and advocating for that with the district office level people.
That's awesome. Scott, I'm so glad to see you there. Scott Crowder is here with us. We appreciated your message from Ed Vistas earlier. Just kind of share a thought with us as we wrap up this conversation. I see you in the chat.
Sure. Thank you for putting this on, and we're very proud to be the sponsor company. In our 27 years, we've always strived to bring that integration to school districts. So starting in 2003, 2004, when we went direct to the web, the biggest challenge that we had was the 6 to 10 high stakes databases and management systems that school districts had that did not communicate. And when this whole thing came together in March, it became even more of an emergency that, hey, my HR system's not talking to my SIS system, not talking to my lunch system, and it really became a big problem. So we have spent, since that period till now, we have been working with hundreds of school districts to bring data systems together that don't natively speak to each other through the APIs and other custom tools that we've developed. And we're taking the data duplication and data error out, so that the teacher never has to identify the students they're connected with or the building. So all the courses, sections, homerooms. And by the way, I love the comments that were brought up about the student management systems that were not ready for this. I can't tell you how many folks at high levels in the 6 to 8 very popular ones here in New York State that I've talked to privately about what they have gone through, basically baptism by fire, trying to put this together for school districts so that you could, in fact, have that hybrid learning scenario. And the last thing I'll say is, we never thought about having to deal with our non-instructional staff. Well, now with the daily health questionnaire and contact tracing and everything else that we're doing, we're now having to bring all that together. So this has been a very exciting time. Everyone's on a high wire without a net, but I'm so proud of what all of you are doing. And SAANYS, thank you for putting this together. I can't wait for part 2. And we looked at this as a huge opportunity to take what we do well. And I love the fact that you said relationships. Our relationships with our clients is what allows us to provide the helpful things that we do, and all of you also. So we're happy, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for sharing with us today and being here today. And you gave me the perfect opportunity to give everyone a sneak peek at Improving Remote Learning for School Leaders Part 2, October 15th. Here's who's going to be here. We're going to have Jolene DeBrango here. She is Executive Vice President of NYSET. I've worked closely with Jolene. It's always a pleasure to have her with us in any capacity. Jolene is going to speak to us very candidly about what teachers are feeling, what teachers need from us with regard to remote hybrid models. And be ready, because I reassured her that she could be honest. She said, "Can I really be honest?" And I said, "Absolutely, Jolene. This is not the sugarcoat SAANYS Connect. You want to be honest? We would love to have you, and we're going to be good listeners and participants." So October 15th, we're going to have Jolene DeBrango from NYSET. Excuse me. We are also going to feature Catherine Procope. Catherine is the head of school at Howard University Middle School of Math and Science in Washington, D.C. And Catherine just won the NASSP Digital Principal of the Year Award. And she is the real deal in terms of speaking from the perspective of a principal in a large urban school, dealing with all kinds of equity issues, as well as technology and remote learning issues. So you won't want to miss Catherine and Jolene on October 15th, as well as Dr. Greg Brown, our SAANYS Digital Leader of 2019, RJ's predecessor the year before. So it's going to be another hour filled with great insights, and we hope you can join us. And as we start to wrap up, but before I thank our panelists, I just want you to really make sure you don't miss what's on the screen right now, because what Eric gave us today was just a small taste of kind of the deep learning that you can do over 9 sessions, and we deliberately timed these to fit your busy schedules. This is like an hour, about once a month. It's from 4 to 5 p.m. Eric models everything that we should be doing. It's going to be extremely engaging and interactive. So just go to our SAANYS website. Don't miss this opportunity for a 9-part series with Eric. That's going to be outstanding. And we're proud to be presenting that in conjunction with NICEGate. So at this point, we will wrap up, but I want to just thank Eric and RJ and Lori and Amy so much for taking time out of their day today and time to plan before today to be here. We just really benefited from this rich conversation. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we hope that all of our listeners out there found things to take away that are helpful to you and your teachers who are doing such great work. And once again, go to those golden resources that will be connected to the recorded version on our website. Thank you so much, Michelle Hebert, for making this all come together and getting that recorded version and resources up there as always. And everyone, just have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Karen.
Have a
Thank
great
you,
night.
Karen.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.